time where nuclear deals can destroy or nuclear weapons can destroy whole cities. We don't want any countries to abuse this power, and I feel that we should really take away their sanctions so they can recover as an economy.
As Iran's ally and fellow Middle Eastern, you are taking away our protection in case you guys were ever to wage war on us, and it's very hard for countries in the Middle East to protect ourselves when other countries have the power of nuclear weapons, but we have none. Thank you.
I do think that nuclear power for the uses of medicine and energy is a resource that they deserve to have and that every country deserves to have. But I do not think that Iran should be allowed to enrich their uranium to create nuclear weapons.
China believes that Iran should not have nuclear weapons. However, I think that it's totally fair for them to have safe nuclear energy.
France is strongly in support of this Iran nuclear deal because Iran, being a country that has lied to the world about their nuclear possessions and their use of nuclear energy, it just doesn't make sense to run the risk of giving this country nuclear weapons. Since nuclear weapons can do so much damage and hurt so many people. Thank you.
We believe that if Iran continues to make these dangerous weapons, it will make it impossible to reverse proliferation. And if this continues, then the rest of the Middle East will also aspire for such capabilities in case of attack. And in our opinion, while the militarization of the nuclear program is completely unacceptable, we support the fact that all countries have the right to build nuclear.
They have had heavily enriched uranium, and we are not ready to run this risk as a society. If Iran is developing a nuclear weapon, countries develop nuclear weapons to bomb other countries. We are not ready to have another million people wiped out by a nuclear bomb.
A treaty with Iran is the only way we can verify that Iran will not develop military-grade nuclear weapons.
The people in Iran need to live, they need defense, and they need items that are sanctioned by the EU. Thank you.
This Security Council has passed 6 different security resolutions that deal sanctions, and none of them have had any effect on Iran. All that sanctions have effect on is the living conditions of the poor people in Iran. Security Resolution 1803 advises countries to monitor Iranian individuals and search their planes and ships. This leads to a very easy excuse to deny Iranians entrance to their country and to stop the flow of money.
Yes, delegate from Syria. Motion for attendant on speaking time of 1 minute on the topic of the effect of sanctions.
All those in favor?
This motion passes.
And I ask you guys, what is more important? Is it more important for you guys not to let Iran have defense, or is it more important to morally allow these people to get necessities that they need and not sanction them from that to put them in even more of a crisis? Thank you.
I think maybe we could make out a deal where we stop sanctioning them, and we should work on a deal where we hold sanctions, but we make sure that they only use nuclear power for medicine and health benefits.
Russia believes that by lifting these sanctions, Iran will have no use for their nuclear weapons in the first place, but we will allow them to continue to use nuclear energy to boost their economy and have no need for the threat of bombs.
No, Iran has to be more open and honest if they wish for us to lift sanctions and help them.
Imposing sanctions on Iran will very largely decrease their exports of Iran, which in turn helps Venezuela's own failing economy, as it causes the oil prices to rise.
Fellow delegates and honorable chair, I'd like to refute Armenia's assertion that Iran would actually nuke anybody. Iran is aware of the retaliations it will face from the rest of the world if it actually detonates nuclear warheads on any other country. Their development of a nuclear program is merely a scare tactic against the West. We must halt their nuclear program and not lift any sanctions.
Security Resolution 1803. It instructed member states to monitor Iranian banks, inspect Iranian ships, inspect Iranian aircraft, and monitor Iranian individuals that are coming into their country. Do you know how hard it would be to do business in any other country in the world if your banks, if your ships, if your planes, anything going in and out of Iran is scrutinized and maybe denied? This is just a great forum for some sort of racism against Iranians. they can just write it off as, ooh, we found something suspicious on their planes or their ships. And really? Is that what you're trying to do here?
And as an ally to Iran, we're not allowed to have nuclear weapons, and neither are many countries in the Middle East. And I feel that there should be certain countries in the Middle East, such as Iran, who are allowed to have these nuclear weapons without backlash, such as sanctions, which kills their people. Thank you.
What happens if self-defense turns into offense?
There needs to be a way to reach a deal and not have something and not seek security in such a powerful weapon like the nuclear bomb.
There's only been one time ever that a nuclear bomb has been dropped. So there is no reason that you should believe that we would actually drop them. It's just for our own safety if someone were to attack us.
What Russia believes is by lifting sanctions, Iran can have the privilege to trade with other countries for defense, such as arms, such as other tools that they need to help grow their economy, and claim in the right of self-defense.
Nuclear weapons in Armenia aren't considered self-defense. We're attacking another country. Iran is attacking another country if they launch a nuclear weapon. They're not defending themselves.
I do not think that countries in the Middle East, such as Syria and Iran and Iraq, should have nuclear weapons. It is a war-torn zone with terrorists who are harbored in all the countries, and I do not think that it is safe for those governments, unstable governments, to have access to high-level technology.
Is it self-defense or is it a scare tactic for other countries? It's the only reason people would use nuclear weapons was for leverage over other countries.
Other countries can say, hey, if you get nuked, we'll protect you without having to have that country have nukes.
That they should have nuclear weapons, both Israel and Iran, because of the fact that the U.S. Has called Iran many times terrorists and threats, and has threatened the Muslim Brotherhood.
So Israel, I ask you, what qualifies you over Iran to have the ability to nuclear weapons, and that the global community would trust that you would not betray our trust in you?
Now we are in a state of denuclearization throughout the world, and we're trying to denuclearize countries and stop programs from being nuclearized. Our program is long-standing, and in addition, we are a very stable country who hasn't harmed anyone else in the international community.
I would like to ask the United States, how are we to be sure that you're not going to attack Iran the second they give up their nuclear weapons? How are we to be sure that you're only using it for self-defense?
The main point right now is that Iran feels threatened from other countries. So we should eliminate that threat by creating good relations with other countries. And so the U.S. should not sanction Iran and give them economic benefits. And
There are many other places that are not just in the Middle East, but all around the world that pose a threat to the Iranian people. So for that reason, we cannot just denuclearize Israel. We would have to literally denuclearize the world.
So if both of them denuclearized, then that would satisfy the EU, and it would lead the world to lift sanctions from Iran, and that would help the entire Middle East stabilize as an entire region.
If you take them away from Iran, then you are opening it up for Israel to nuke Iran and other Middle Eastern countries when they have no defense.
If everyone keeps nuclear weapons, we will eventually start a third world war.
The reason I believe that we do not have a third world war yet is the fact that mutually assured destruction. Meaning that if a country attacks another country through use of force, the other country can retaliate with the same means.
Esteemed delegates and honorable chair, I would like to respond to Syria's accusation that Israel is somehow a threat to the rest of the Middle East. It is one Jewish state in a sea of Arab ones. I'd also like to say that I agree that Israel does not need its nuclear program. No country needs a nuclear program. Therefore, both Israel and Iran should shut them down.
We try to fix climate change so we can try to fix nuclearization. Maybe it won't ever be perfect, but we can at least try.
Nukes use 90% enriched uranium, whereas energy only needs 3%. So you're wasting more time gathering this really heavily enriched uranium, which you do not need, right?
No country, including ourselves, us, will use nuclear weapons, because if a country uses nuclear weapons, they will immediately have the same force applied upon them, which is mutually assured destruction. And at this point, no one has used a nuclear weapon
since Hiroshima.
And it is time to finally change. It is time to finally denuclearize the world and close the box that was opened in 1945 with Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
In the case that the world is denuclearized, we should instate like some sort of special council to specifically oversee and enforce that countries do not build new nuclear programs.
So if denuclearization would happen, we would have to pass some harsh measures, not just inspections, to ensure that all countries are following what they signed on, because it's been seen repeatedly in the past that countries don't always follow through on promises, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons.
How can you ensure that all countries get rid of their nuclear weapons when you know that a lot of countries have already been dishonest about it, and we've seen many examples of this?
And if they're continuing to make nuclear weapons, then we can, as a collective global society, we can make sure that nothing goes in or out of their country. There are very few countries in this world that could actually be self-sustaining and continue to grow and thrive and be a part of the modern world. And if they're cut off from the rest of the world, they're going to have a good incentive to stop.
Is it really good to continue the problem that we've had with Iran with betraying trust and leverage throughout all the other countries in the global community? I think that just getting rid of nukes in the first place is the easy way to go, and having a strict enforcement of this law. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how to create a resolution so that we can basically create resolutions and get them approved. And hopefully we'll get a few good resolutions by the end of the day.
To explain the operator's process a little bit more, this is like your action. The first clauses are like what information is important, and these clauses are like what am I going to do about it? Like we declare that Iran has to reduce all their nuclear power to a certain percentage, something like that. And these are all like active verbs that are going to help you do and take actions.
However, are nuclear weapons really a valid form of self-defense, delegates? They're really attacking other people. So what we should do is reach a compromise. Maybe if Iran would like their energy, that's acceptable because it's not in the form of a weapon. They're just powering their cities with safe nuclear power. However, we cannot allow this nuclear program to continue because Armenia strongly believes that peaceful relations between countries are not supported by every country having nuclear weapons. Iran has no reason to fear retaliation from other countries because if someone were to nuke Iran, they would know that they would face heavy retaliation from not just Iran but other countries. So for this reason, we should cancel the nuclear program in Iran, but still allow them to use energy. It doesn't necessarily mean that we plan on using them. It means that if someone else plans on using one of theirs on our people, then we are able to respond with an equally powerful device.
We'll do a 10-minute unmod. All in favor, please raise your hand.
Honestly, yes.
This motion passes.
Iran doesn't have to comply if we have a majority.
Oh, okay, great.
So basically, we're going to find ways to sanction Iran instead of in ways that don't hurt the people but hurt the government, which is who we're really trying to target here. So you guys write the
Yes.
treaty.
Oh, 1.1. All for debating about the bill. Please raise your clappers now. Okay. Against? All against? The motion has been passed.
Realizing that sanctions against Iranian goods are hurting the economies of other nations.
And reminding all nations that nuclear weapons are the most powerful form of defense.
Realizing that a war against Iran could harm not only the nation itself, but other nations around it, so they need a form of defense in case the war breaks out.
How is Iran going to get back their trust? By not being allowed to use nuclear weapons, and there will be checks given in sporadic timing so that they can't hide it.
Proceeding. All in favor of introducing Resolution Nuclear Peace Act, please raise your placards. All against? Seeing this, this motion is passed.
Demands that Iran destroys all existing nuclear warheads in their possession.
States that if the IAEA finds that Iran did not destroy their entire stock of nuclear weapons, or enriching uranium beyond the allowed percentage, we will add multiple sanctions specifically targeted at harming the Iranian government as opposed to the people.
For debate is when it will take effect and how long it will last.
How will ballistic missile be effective in a nuclear war?
Well, they don't. So there is no winner in a nuclear war. Ballistic weapons can still be as effective at killing civilians as nuclear ones.
Siren states that Iran should give up its nuclear programs, and if they do, all sanctions will be lifted.
Iran. So it says that like sanctions will be added if Iran doesn't abolish their nuclearization, but for one that hurts the Iranian civilians. Secondly, what happens if there is a war or something where Iran does need nuclear weapons?
So for the civilians, no, it does not affect civilians because it's government-owned companies.
Okay.
If this was for Saudi Arabia, those oil companies would be sanctioned. And the companies owned by the Iranian people are not sanctioned at all.
Thank you both for presenting, and I think we actually have a special guest from the UN Economic Advisor who's going to come and clarify some points about what the Commission can actually do.
The UN, as a general group, is not allowed to necessarily declare anything, okay? So the way it enforces policy is by having its members enforce their own policies. And so part of that is like, say for example, a policy gets passed, then all the countries have to participate in that policy. And if you don't, the consequence is that you lose certain membership status. So membership status helps you approve policy, it gives you veto power and other things of the sort.
If I decided that I'm not going to follow through sanctions on Iran, so the UN actually can't do anything but recommend.
So, delegates, the way to think about it is whatever you pass in this committee, that is you agreeing as your country to follow those rules. And so they are not directly enforced in terms of any like military action taken against you.
1530 for all resolutions so far. All in favor, please raise your flag.
Venezuela is not present right now.
Seeing this, the motion is passed. We are moving into a moderated caucus.
Siren has a lot of flaws and definitely needs a lot of amendments before I ever stand a chance of voting for it.
The Nuclear Peace Act is one of the best resolutions we have on the table.
Look at almost every other country in the world. They don't have nukes, and they haven't been blown up.
With the nuclear peace treaty, it does not tell us anything. It is a vague piece of paper.
Iran did not signatory the Nuclear Peace Act, and that could cause a problem. Also, I also see a lot of flaws in the Nuclear Peace Act, and that especially the stuff about climate change and their nuclear power. How are you going to be able to detect if it's being used for power and not weapons? Thank you.
You can't use anything over 20%. 20% is the maximum for medical enrichment, and 90% is for weapons.
I think we should be focusing on the idea besides all the flaws that each one has.
A summary is that it repeals all of the sanctions, it halts their nuclear program for 15 years unless a nuclear war is declared. If they cheat and lie to the UN, it halts their program for another 15 years.
If Iran breaks this deal, sanctions will be decided based on that time what would hurt Iran the most, and that would be voted on by a committee. This would last for 15 years to allow Iran time to gain the UN's trust, and finally, after the 15 years have elapsed, and Iran does not violate the agreements, Iran has 10 years to build back their nuclear stockpile. However, they can still not use any nuclear weapons until the 25 years have elapsed. The bill will have to be revisited after 25 years just to determine and be reaffirmed by the Council that Iran is now allowed to use nuclear weapons.
Siren states that Iran should give up its nuclear program. If they don't give up their nuclear program, they will get sanctioned or tariff.
All those in favor of Resolution 1.1, please raise your placard.
And the 2/3 majority is 17 votes. So you
All against this bill? This resolution fails. Resolution Nuclear Peace Act. All in favor, please raise your placards.
Let's go. This motion passes. Clap.
vote on resolution Siren. All in favor, please raise your placards. All against, please raise your placards. This motion has failed.